My girlfriend quit her career when I became a millionaire because she wants to relax. 7 years ago, I met Kylie, not her real name, in community college. She was the kind of person who immediately stood out, always smiling, always kind, with this natural warmth that made people gravitate toward her. We quickly became close friends. At first, we bonded over simple things like discussing homework or grabbing coffee between classes. But as time went on, I realized how much I trusted her and enjoyed being around her. She was the kind of person you could open up to about anything, and I knew she'd always have my back. When we met, Kylie had a clear vision for her future. She wanted to become a nurse, and it wasn't just a job for her, it was a calling. She would talk about how much she wanted to help people, about how nurses could make a real difference in the world. Her passion was infectious. It was one of the things that drew me to her. I admired her determination and how she knew exactly what she wanted out of life. After 2 years of friendship, we started dating. It felt natural, like the next step in a relationship that was already strong. Our friends would joke that they saw it coming long before we did because of how close we were. Kylie became my biggest supporter. When I decided to transfer to a 4-year university to earn my MBA, she cheered me on every step of the way. I was nervous about the workload and whether I'd be able to succeed, but she always reassured me. "You've got this," she'd say. "You're smart and hardworking. I believe in you." Her encouragement meant everything to me. While I was pursuing my MBA, Kylie faced her own challenges. Her parents cut her off financially due to what they called her irresponsible spending habits. It was a tough time for her. She had to take a year off from school to work full-time at a jewelry store to cover her bills. She'd call me at night, frustrated and exhausted, but she never gave up on her dream. "It's just a delay," she'd tell me. "I'll get back to it as soon as I can." During that time, I took a huge risk. My best friend and I decided to launch a startup in the automotive industry. I poured all my savings, time, and energy into the project, knowing it was a gamble but feeling like I had to take the chance. Kylie supported me through it all. She listened to my endless business ideas and reassured me when I doubted myself. I'll always be grateful for how much faith she had in me, even when things were uncertain. As my startup began to grow, I threw myself into the work completely. My best friend and I spent countless sleepless nights refining our platform, reaching out to clients, and pitching to investors. It was exhausting, but it felt like we were building something truly meaningful. Kylie stayed by my side through it all. Even when I was too busy to spend much time with her, she remained patient and supportive. She listened to my endless business talk and kept encouraging me to push forward. "Do you think it'll work?" she asked one night when I was telling her about a big pitch we were planning. "I don't know," I admitted, "but if I don't try, I'll always wonder." She smiled and said, "Then try. I believe in you." While I was consumed by my startup, Kylie was holding down her job at the jewelry store. She worked hard, paid her bills, and managed to save up some money in the hopes of returning to school. We often talked about her nursing dreams. I'd ask if she still wanted to pursue it, and her answer was always the same. "Absolutely. I just need to get through this for now." But over time, I noticed that her enthusiasm seemed to fade. She spoke less and less about going back to school, and when I asked about it, she'd shrug it off with vague answers. Earlier this year, everything changed. My startup was bought by a major company in the industry. The acquisition was beyond anything I could have imagined. We didn't just make money. We made life-changing money. Not only that, but my best friend and I were retained as consultants, earning high salaries in addition to the payout. It was surreal. Years of hard work had finally paid off, and my life suddenly looked completely different. Kylie was thrilled for me. She laughed and said I was now officially successful. We started dreaming about what we could do with this newfound wealth. I wanted to invest in our future, so I bought a beautiful condo for us to live in, close to her school. I also offered to cover her tuition and living expenses so she could go back to school without any financial worries. At first, she was excited. We talked about the classes she could take and how fulfilling it would be for her to finally achieve her dream. It felt like we were on the same page, working towards something meaningful together. But then, things started to change. One night, while we were talking, Kylie casually mentioned, "I'm not sure if I really want to go back to school. Maybe I could just be a stay-at-home wife." Her words caught me off guard. We weren't even married, and the idea of her giving up on her career entirely felt out of character. I didn't know how to respond, so I stayed quiet, hoping it was just a passing thought. But the more time passed, the more I noticed shifts in her behavior. After Kylie brought up the idea of becoming a stay-at-home wife, I couldn't shake the uneasy feeling it gave me. It wasn't just the suggestion itself. It was the way she seemed to be changing. When I first met Kylie, she was someone who valued simplicity. She wasn't materialistic and didn't care much about designer labels or expensive things. But after my financial situation changed, so did her perspective. She began shopping more frequently, buying things she didn't need, designer handbags, jewelry, and expensive home decor that didn't even match our condo. She even started talking about upgrading her car. "Maybe we should get something nicer," she said one evening, scrolling through pictures of luxury cars, like a BMW or an Audi. It caught me off guard because she'd never shown much interest in cars before. We'd always been content driving her reliable, albeit older, sedan. I tried to gently bring up her future plans during one of our dinners. "So, have you thought more about going back to school?" I asked, hoping to spark some excitement in her. She shrugged, barely looking up from her phone. "I don't know. You said I didn't have to worry about money anymore, so I thought maybe I'd just take it easy for a while." Her tone was casual, but her words hit me hard. I'd supported her dreams of becoming a nurse for so long, and now it felt like she was giving up on them without a second thought. When I tried to explain why this worried me, she brushed it off. "You're overthinking it," she said with a smile. "We're finally in a good place. Why not enjoy it?" It was as if we were speaking different languages. I wanted to use this financial freedom to grow and achieve more, while she seemed content to let go of her ambitions entirely. The changes in Kylie's behavior didn't stop at her spending habits. She also seemed less interested in me and our relationship. Where she used to ask me about my day or surprise me with little gestures of kindness, now her attention was focused on shopping, planning vacations, or scrolling through social media. It felt like the version of Kylie I had fallen in love with, the driven, compassionate, and ambitious woman, was disappearing. In her place was someone I barely recognized. I couldn't help but ask myself tough questions. Was I being too critical? Was I wrong to expect her to maintain the same level of ambition? Or was I finally seeing a side of her that had always been there, but I hadn't noticed before? The more I thought about it, the more conflicted I felt. I loved Kylie, but I couldn't ignore the growing sense that we were no longer aligned in our goals or values. As the days went by, my doubts only grew stronger. I couldn't shake the feeling that Kylie and I were heading in completely different directions. What once felt like a shared dream now seemed like two separate realities. One evening, I decided to bring it up again. I had spent so much time thinking about how to approach the conversation without sounding judgmental, but when I finally spoke, the words just came out. "Kylie, I've been feeling like we're not on the same page anymore. You've talked about not wanting to go back to school, and I'm starting to wonder what that means for us." She looked confused at first, then defensive. "Why does it matter so much? You're successful now. We don't need my income. I thought you'd be happy that I'm finally relaxing after everything I've been through." I tried to explain that it wasn't about the money. "It's not about whether we need your income or not," I said. "It's about what we're building together. I fell in love with your passion, your drive. That's what made us work so well as a team." Her expression hardened. "So, you're saying I'm not good enough because I don't want to be a nurse anymore?" The conversation spiraled from there. I tried to clarify my feelings, but she kept turning it into an argument about how I was pressuring her to live a life she no longer wanted. She said something that stuck with me. "You've changed too, you know. You're so focused on success and building your empire that you're forgetting to just live." In that moment, I realized we were fundamentally different. Her version of just living was settling into a comfortable life, while mine was striving for more and growing together as a team. That night, I told her I didn't think we could move forward together. "You deserve to live the life that makes you happy," I said, "but I don't think it's the same life I see for myself." She cried, and so did I. It wasn't an easy decision, but it felt like the right one. Over the next few weeks, she packed her things and moved out. I helped her find a new apartment and even paid for the first few months of rent to make sure she had a smooth transition. The first few weeks after the breakup were rough. I missed her, of course. I missed the person she used to be. But as time went on, I began to feel a sense of relief. I realized that holding on to the relationship out of fear of being alone would have only hurt us both in the long run. It's been several months since Kylie and I broke up, and I can honestly say that it was one of the hardest decisions I've ever made. At the same time, it was also the right one. Looking back, I don't regret the time we spent together. Kylie was an important part of my life for 7 years, and I'll always appreciate the love and support she gave me during some of my most challenging times. But I've also come to realize that people grow and change, and sometimes those changes lead them down different paths. Our breakup wasn't about who was right or wrong. It was about two people wanting different things out of life. For me, ambition and growth are fundamental. I want to be with someone who shares those values, someone who's as excited as I am about building something meaningful together. Kylie, on the other hand, seemed to find her happiness in living a simpler, more comfortable life. After Kylie moved out, I threw myself into my work. I started taking on new projects and exploring opportunities that I hadn't had the time to consider before. I even began mentoring young entrepreneurs, which has been incredibly rewarding. Outside of work, I've been focusing on myself in ways I hadn't before. I started working out regularly, picked up golf again, and even signed up for a cooking class just for fun. I've also been reconnecting with friends and family. During my relationship with Kylie, I sometimes let those relationships take a back seat. Now, I'm making a conscious effort to spend more time with the people who matter most to me. A couple of months after the breakup, Kylie reached out. She sent me a long message, saying she missed me and wanted to talk. She admitted that she hadn't realized how much she relied on me until we were no longer together. I thought about responding, but in the end, I decided against it. It wasn't out of anger or resentment. I just knew that going back would only reopen old wounds. I had already started moving forward, and I didn't want to lose the progress I'd made. This experience taught me so much about relationships and about myself. I've learned that love isn't always enough to sustain a relationship. It takes shared goals, values, and a willingness to grow together. I've also learned that it's okay to let go of something, even if it's hard. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do for yourself and the other person is to walk away. Now, I feel more optimistic about the future than I have in a long time. I'm open to the idea of finding love again, but this time, I know exactly what I'm looking for. A partner who shares my passion for growth and ambition, someone who wants to build a life together as equals. To anyone who's been in a similar situation, it's okay to prioritize your values and your happiness. It might not be easy, but in the end, it's worth it. Update. When Kylie and I broke up, I knew it would be a turning point in my life. But what I didn't anticipate was how much that decision would force me to confront myself, my values, my ambitions, and the kind of life I truly wanted. The weeks following the breakup were a whirlwind of emotions. On the surface, I was busy with work and daily routines, but internally, I felt like I was unraveling everything I thought I knew about love and relationships. It wasn't just about letting Kylie go. It was about letting go of the future I had imagined for us and learning how to embrace a completely different path. For the first time in years, I found myself sitting with silence. No plans to make together, no shared vision to guide my decisions. At first, it was jarring. I had to adjust to the idea that my life was now entirely in my hands. One thing that hit me hard was realizing how much of myself I had tied to my role as a supportive partner. With Kylie, I had always tried to be the one who fixed things, who provided solutions. When that dynamic disappeared, I was left with a simple but difficult question. Who am I without someone to support? As the days turned into weeks, I began to see this period of my life as an opportunity, not just to heal, but to redefine my priorities. For years, I had focused so much on external success that I hadn't stopped to think about what truly made me happy. I started experimenting with routines that were purely for me. Some mornings, I'd wake up early and go for a walk in the park just to enjoy the quiet. Other days, I'd dive into a book that had nothing to do with business, letting myself get lost in a story without worrying about productivity. These small changes didn't seem like much at first, but over time, they became pillars of a life that felt more grounded and meaningful. One of the most surprising realizations I had was how much I had neglected my creative side. Before Kylie, I loved brainstorming ideas for fun. Whether it was sketching out concepts for products or imagining dream projects that had nothing to do with my startup. During the relationship, I hadn't stopped being ambitious, but I had narrowed my focus to practical goals. Now, I've started carving out time to dream again. I've been exploring ideas for passion projects that might never make money, but they light me up in ways I hadn't felt in years. It's been freeing to embrace creativity without pressure. One of the most rewarding parts of this journey has been strengthening the relationships I'd unintentionally let slide. I started visiting my parents more often, something I hadn't done regularly in years. My mom even joked, "We're seeing you more now than when you lived closer." I also reconnected with old friends, some of whom I hadn't spoken to much since Kylie and I began dating. It was humbling to realize how many people cared about me, even when I wasn't always the best at keeping in touch. Looking back, I've come to see the breakup not as a failure, but as a necessary step toward becoming the person I want to be. It forced me to ask hard questions about what I value in life and in a partner. I've learned that a healthy relationship isn't just about supporting each other. It's about growing together. It's about having a shared vision while still respecting each other's individuality. And it's about being honest, even when the truth is painful. I don't know exactly what the future holds, but for now, I'm okay with that. For the first time in a long time, I feel like I'm building a life that's authentically mine, one that isn't shaped by someone else's expectations or fears. If I meet someone new, I'll welcome it, but I'm not in a rush. Right now, my focus is on continuing to grow, both personally and professionally, and finding joy in the process. To anyone who's struggling with a similar situation, trust yourself. Even when it feels uncertain, the path you carve for yourself is always worth it.